When, now? Can you hear us, Joe?
Yes.
Okay. You ready? Okay. So this is a call to order of the Governance Committee of the Bridgeport Board of Education. Today is Thursday, February 10th, and the time is 6:34 p.m. Present are myself, Committee Chair John Weldon. Committee members Joseph Lombard and Albert Benahan are also in attendance. Board member Joe Sokolovic is in attendance. And for staff, we have Superintendent Michael Testani. Is there anyone else? No, sir.
Also, board member.
I'm present.
Ms.
Christine
Perez is
Beth.
here.
Oh, you didn't see her there. Bobby Brown is present online.
Oh, Christine.
Or Christine.
Christine.
Christine CB. Christine Baptiste Perez is present, participating remotely. See anyone else participating remotely?
No.
Okay. I apologize, Ms. Baptiste. Okay. Approval of minutes, December 14th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Mr. Lombard. I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Discussion with Make the Road Connecticut Youth Group regarding student transportation. Anyone here from Make the Road Connecticut Youth?
Yes.
Where are they?
There.
You keep, come this way. You can have a seat here.
Mr. Weldon, I think they're gonna have to come up.
You're gonna have to come up to the table for the mic to hear you, so I'm gonna move over here.
Then you come.
Whoever's gonna be
Speaking.
talking. Bring another chair.
Oh, yeah, let me get another one.
All right, so if you would state your names for the record, what's your name?
My name is Moiche. I'm the youth coordinator at Make the Road Connecticut, and this is Crystal. I'm one of the youth leaders at Make the Road Connecticut.
Okay. So Muichi, you're the one who's kind of spearheaded this?
I do the contact, but yes, I reached out to you.
Okay, so what is it that you wanted to talk to us about tonight?
So,
It has to do with transportation.
yes, so we wanted to reach out. Unfortunately, our other members couldn't be here today, but we wanted to talk about lowering the transportation mileage for Bridgeport public students.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chair. Can you speak a little loud so we can hear
Oh,
you?
sorry.
Thank you.
So we wanted to talk about lowering the mileage requirement for public students
To be able to receive what?
to lowering it to 1.5 to receive more students to be able to receive bus passes and access to buses.
Okay. Current mileage is 2.
2.5.
It's currently 1.5.
We were told that it was 2.
It's different for elementary and high school.
Oh, and
Yeah.
high school students. That's
So high school
high
is
school.
1.5.
Yeah, because of COVID, we've given out more passes. So I would have to ask, just refer to our policy, because to be honest with you, at this moment, it's eluding me which one is which, because of the fact that we've been just bus passes to much more students regardless, Central Harding and Bassett, regardless of how many miles they live from the home. And we've also been providing bus transport passes to students in extracurricular activities as well.
Okay.
So, can continue your.
Oh, okay, so, as we talked about, we were told that officially it's 2 miles, so we were,
Okay.
you
We'll
know,
go on that assumption until he
yeah.
says otherwise.
Okay, so, what do you call it? So we had been meeting with the superintendent for, a couple of months now, like with our youth. And, we wanted to make it so that the bus pass process was transparent for students, because we've done some.
2 miles. 1.5 for
2
elementary.
miles per high school.
So we had been talking and we wanted to make it so that the process was more transparent for students, because not all of them are aware of it, and, so that the process could be, more broadcasted so that they could be aware of it. We had learned, we had done some looking into some stuff, and we had learned that, Crystal, where are you? Oh, here? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we learned that Bridgeport students receive less money per student in comparison to their peers of the neighborhooding cities. So like Bridgeport receives 15,000 roughly, while Hartford receives like 20,000, and we're severely underfunded. We all know this.
Yeah.
Where's the point? We're not asking to take anything away from the budget. We're asking to help raise it up so that there is money for buses for students
Right.
and bus passes.
That's okay.
Yes, I was gonna say, we also on our behalf would be willing, with our group, to go to city council and advocate for that, for the city and the students.
Well, there's two things here. It sounds like the superintendent and Mr. Pires, in charge of transportation, have been trying to accommodate you guys through dialogue with their, like you've been dealing directly with Mr. Pires, all that
Yes.
stuff, and to the extent that they can provide more bus passes and trying to do that. For whatever reason, it's my understanding that the demand for them hasn't been what you thought they might be. Kids just don't seem to be that interested. But you're actually coming at an interesting time, because on Monday, or Tuesday rather, we're going to be discussing our request for an increase from the city in their contributions to Bridgeport Public Schools. Yeah, that would be a good thing for you to be advocating for, because we'll be at the city council meetings advocating, and we'll need people to be backing us up. If that's something you're interested in. We would like that.
Yeah.
As far as changing the corridor, 2-mile corridor, that would really need to be looked at to see what cost for that would be, because that would also have an impact on school bus costs.
Mhm.
They have to pay an increased amount to the school bus company for them to accommodate an increased load of passengers. So they would really need to be looking into that. It's not
Which is something
we
we've
just-
talked about with the
Yeah.
superintendent.
You did?
He's told us that a lot of students or the city doesn't like that there's a lot of students getting on public buses
Right.
because it's overflowing it when it's time for school for them to leave and come home, you know what I mean? And that is true. We've stood at bus stops and they're full all the time. It takes a while for other buses to come.
Right, during that particular time.
Mm-hmm. So it makes sense to us if we had buses for students as well. Just because especially
Buses for students.
Oh,
school buses,
yeah.
yellow buses. Because especially with the state of the world right now, like COVID, it's just not safe for kids to be on public buses with a bunch of other people and having it packed is, all right.
Well, again, that would really have to be looked at, because, citywide, changing that corridor by a half a mile could have a severe impact on the cost.
Mhm.
I don't know what that would be. They would have to look at that closely.
How do you determine who, like who fits that? Like how many students get a bus and then how many students do you get passes? Like how do you determine that within?
Passes are given to students who are kind of an outlier. They don't really fit within a school bus route, and to create a school bus route to accommodate them would be more costly than just giving them a bus pass. So that's kind of the distinguishing factor.
Okay.
I will also let you know that the city bus company is not allowed to provide special buses just for schools.
We were told that
That's
by,
It's called school bus. It's a federal transit
Mhm.
administration
Yeah.
regulation. They're not able to do that. If it's a bus that is being put into, say, the Route 3 here on Madison Avenue to try to alleviate students taking the bus, they would be open to the public.
Mhm.
So it's a difficult situation. So GBT would not be able to really help with this.
Yeah,
Right.
it would be
We were-
the yellow.
we were told by Doug.
You're welcome. I used to work for GBT. So, I mean, we can look and see what the cost would be to see if it would be feasible.
Mhm.
And like I said, we would like your advocacy in our meeting to the city council for increased funding.
When
Is
are,
that?
I
when are you
don't know
guys?
just yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we
They're
were-
just starting the process.
Mhm.
But if you watch our meetings, watch the city council meetings, you'll find out.
told that around now they're kind of deciding and like sometime in February they'll start posting when that'll be.
Sounds right. My recollection is March and April is when it really starts to heat up.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions for Make the Road?
I got some logistical questions. I don't know, when did that federal law start? When I was in school, we did have an actual special bus.
That's always been.
And when from
You're receiving federal funding.
I don't know.
So GBT receives federal funding, and part of their, or part of the requisites of that federal funding is you cannot effectively compete with private school bus companies by providing a dedicated school bus. Like they could not provide a school bus that picks up at Central and goes to the bus station. It would have to travel the regular route, and anybody who wanted to board it would be allowed to board it. It has to be a regular revenue service vehicle. They could not provide a dedicated bus to alleviate kids getting on at, say, Central High School.
Right.
I'm just thinking of this a workaround where they could integrate it like a new route, like starting at Central and going across, following all the rules and stopping at other stops.
Oh, that's
And the bus will be
the way they would be able to do it. They could put a tripper into that route. It's a supplemental bus, but it travels the full route.
And it's accessible to the
anybody-
public.
Yeah, and anybody would be able to board it.
Yeah, we spoke to Doug Holcomb and he told us is that they've been talking with you guys and that what they want to do.
Talking with him, not me.
Oh, okay. That he wanted to make it so that the youth pass was more like advertised and that like there would be no restrictions on it. That's so far what they told us they could do.
I don't really know what the restrictions are, if any, these days.
Some
Not-
students
not-
don't know that they can use it on weekends.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a restriction. That's, people not know it. I mean, once upon a
Well,
time, it
also
was,
the bus drivers don't know. That's the
Yeah.
thing, like,
well, that's up
It's
to
a lot of
Mr. Holcomb. He's got to let the bus drivers know that you can basically use it any day, anytime. Once upon a time, there were restrictions.
mhm.
Correct. That's no longer the case. Bus pass we provide is limited to just the school week,
Mhm.
as it was in the past.
Or times a day.
Or, right, so it is regularly used. Like I said, we've increased the number of bus passes that we hand out, well over 400 now. We're having issues with bus passes being returned from the schools early in the year, but as we've gotten to the colder weather, students are now taking those bus passes. But September and October, and even into November, at a couple of schools, we were giving us back reimbursement at the end of the month. The only school that's been utilizing them 100% from the beginning of the school year is Harding. And they also have the largest number of bus passes.
Yeah.
But we've been adding bus passes every month to the schools to accommodate students that are in after-school programs and other programs to help with transportation. We added some this week alone. The students that are traveling to Bullard Haven for the program to participate with the Justice Project. So keep increasing as the need increases as well.
This is a little off topic, but since BASIC is moving to where the, yes, how will that have to accommodate for students who live farther? Because now they would be living really far from.
So students that will attend the new BASIC High School, it will increase the transportation number of buses. It's estimated right now, but that's based on current residents. Probably 8 school buses will travel to BASIC.
Oh, Mr. Bennett.
How about, and up, you want to,
Joe.
Ms. Bautista?
Oh, I didn't see you. Ms. Baptiste, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question more for Mr. Testani. How are the bus passes advertised, and the bus passes that are being distributed are solely for the high school students, not for the elementary school? And then I guess my question is 2-part. And then for, I'm sorry, the our guest speakers.
Mhm.
Are you primarily concerned with high school transportation, or are you also concerned with middle school and elementary school? Just for clarification.
Well, we primarily have focused on high school transportation because those are the, we haven't really talked about elementary school students because that's not who I deal with, in particular.
Okay, so then just to tailor my question more to Mr. Testani is, how is it being advertised to the high school students? And also, is it available on each high school website page? And is it also available on our district page about bus passes being available to all high school students?
They're not available to all high school students. They're available to high school students that live beyond 2 miles. We are updating the website. We're still in the process. We're almost at the final stage, as we discussed in a prior meeting 2 weeks ago. And there's going to be a more advertised, dedicated page to transportation, but the schools advertise at the beginning of the year, and they keep lists, comes and signs for them. I know, when I was at the high school, we used to make it every beginning of the month. We would we'd make announcements in the morning regarding bus passes. So that's a drop to each individual building, how they do that. They have lists of the kids that have bus passes, so they'll call them down when they haven't picked up their bus pass, make sure that they come get it. As far as the elementary schools, if you're beyond the 1.5 miles elementary, which includes up to 8th grade, you get a school bus. But most of our schools are within walking distance for those students. Very few schools, neighborhood schools, have school buses.
Okay, I understand that part, but then what about what was mentioned regarding after school sports at different schools? The bus passes are exclusively for students that live beyond 2 miles. But
Correct. This year, we've been able to, with expanded funding from the federal dollars, to be able to go less than 2 miles and provide bus passes for kids that are in between that 1.5 and 2. We've also provided for kids that are in some of the after-school activities and sports that we normally do not do as well. But again, that is because we have the availability now of funding that will dry up in 2024.
And how is that advertised though? Like, is it just based on the school again? Or is that also like marketed to the student population that may qualify?
Well, no, if you're playing on a team, you go through your coach or like here at Central, for example, there's historically always been a late bus that comes to help kids that stay for after school tutoring and things like that because of the magnet program. But for the other schools, historically sports and after school activities, are not then transported. But like I said, right now we're able to do that for kids that are in need, that live beyond and need to get home. But usually coaches, if there's we don't encourage this any longer, but give kids a ride and parents will pick up, kids will walk in groups. There's a variety of ways they get home.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair? Yeah.
Lombard.
So, Mr. Testani, could you speak to their specific request to lower it from 2 miles to 1.5 miles, seeing that they're dealing specifically with the high schools? I know that they mentioned lobbying for more funding, but even if that were the case, is that something that would be considered or not something that we'll be looking into, and the reasons for that?
Well, if you lower it, we can run through TransFinder and a report on what that impact would be financially. But let's remember, just at Fairchild Wheeler a couple of years ago when we had this conversation, giving the lower just for that one school increased the budget 1.5 million. So if you do that to the other 3 high schools, even if it was on average $1 million at each school, you're looking at $3 million. The other problem that could present itself, does We Transport have the buses available, and do they have the bus drivers available? As you've been well advertised throughout the pandemic, the shortage of bus drivers across the state. And what we've learned, and most people don't realize, to onboard a new bus driver, it takes up to 6 to 7 months to go through the entire process. It's not that simple. I had no idea until we had this issue raised throughout the pandemic. So there's other logistical factors that even if we had free flowing dollars, that our bus contractor and bus drivers may not be able to handle the increase in volume. Not sure. Because we have a tiered system like everyone else does, pickups and drop-offs, so that the same buses and same bus drivers are delivering kids and picking up kids from elementary and high school. So they'll do their high school run and then they jump on their elementary school run. We've been fortunate that We Transport's been able to do that throughout the pandemic without any interruptions. I'm not sure if that would be the case if we increased the bus volume.
Thank you. I think it's pretty much looks like even with some additional funding, it's probably not very likely that decreasing it would be in the near future. We don't know for sure, but I just wanted to have that be out there from what everything looks like.
And the other thing, as we've talked about this, about transportation and being more efficient. For example, here at Central High School, there are some days the buses come and go, and they're supposed to be, because when we assign buses and they do the routes, it's all done through a very high sophisticated computer program. There should be full buses. And a lot of times the buses have very few kids, because if you've ever come to this building in particular in the morning, a lot of kids get dropped off by parents, and that's pre-pandemic as well. Free flow of cars and drop-offs is happening all morning, and that happens at the other schools as well. So It's not only a matter of who qualifies for the bus, it's if they actually take the bus. That's also problematic because right now, if we look, we could probably consolidate some routes, but then you do that and then kids decide to start taking the bus and the buses no longer have the capacity. So it's a slippery slope.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, you can try to get the data for this, just so that it's known.
What the cost would be, sure.
Yeah, and for your part, I mean, you can continue to talk with GPT about them making sure their operators know how the passes work, so that there's less confusion and kids aren't getting denied when they shouldn't be denied. And like I said, feel free to advocate with us before the city council. But we'll find out some added information to have some definitive. Okay.
Well, so one last point, now that you mentioned advocacy, I'm thinking of basically a monopoly that the bus companies have federally. So maybe some advocacy could be done on a federal level to try to get that change where buses can make routes and might make for more competition between the two, lower bus costs, and will enable us to.
Are you asking if we would be able to lobby for?
Yeah, like Senator Blumenthal, Murphy, because that, I don't know if we could get them to whatever the law is or whatever, and then they could focus on that as well, and maybe we could help them out with that, because that would definitely help us and help our bottom line if we would be able to have GBT pick up a lot of our students, and it'll help to free our costs.
It's not that they can't, it's just that they can't do it exclusively.
Right.
That's the only limitation. They can't park a bus in front of the Madison Avenue gate, take on kids and only kids, and go downtown. That's a school bus, and that is prohibited. But they can put a tripper on. They can have it start at Madison Avenue, and it's just got to make all the stops and let anybody on or off that wants to get on or off.
It's like that's something that could increase the efficiency and costs if they were allowed to do so. So just a thought.
That is a thought. We've never thought about lobbying, on a state level for that. I don't know federal level. I don't know if there would be any strict restrictions on that.
Lobby for whatever you want.
I have a question as well. As far as a stopgap or BandAid, I don't know if it's a BandAid, but is there ever any thought for, let's say, that half a mile between 2 miles and 1.5 miles, where there could just be a seasonal bus just for the cold winter months, just only available, the budgeting funding for just a short term 3-4 month thing? Is that possible?
You mean school buses?
Yeah, I mean, in other words, if it's not feasible to increase it to or decrease it to 1.5 miles because of all the things we talked about, are there other creative solutions in addition to GBT, in addition to just raising the budget, or other than that? So,
well, I mean, once we had the numbers, you could see how they would apply if you were only doing it during the winter.
yeah, I mean, it may not make sense.
So if it was $1 million a school for a 10-month period, could you say that, well, if you were only doing it from December to February?
I mean, you still have to train the drivers.
Well, like I said, we could ask what that cost would be and if it would be feasible.
Yeah, the logistical
How
element
many
is a whole
people are going to
separate.
take a bus driving job for 3 months and then be unemployed? I don't know what they would do with that individual.
Well, yeah.
The rest of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's around between $70,000 and $75,000 a year per bus to run it.
Yeah, like I said, it may not be realistic. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
I had it already.
Mr. Benahan?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just to listen to everything what's going on and about talking about the money this, everything is money. But for me, money is not an issue. I'm going to tell you why. First, my issue is the health and the safety of the kids. Give me a flashback at 2 years ago when my son was in Bassett. I had to take my son almost for 2 years take it to Bassett High School, because just because one block, my son don't qualify for the bus. City, sometimes they don't clean the street with the way they're supposed to be. And those, they don't either. The way little kids walking to the school is terrible. I did it. I went outside. A lot of organizations went outside and walked with this kid to school. It was not safe at all. Just because we changed it for 2 mile and limited to 1.5. So you said a few minutes ago that we got covered until 2024, something like that. That's what you said, Mr. Testani? Before you said something about cover the transportation. I know Bautista asked you that question, something like that.
Increase in the
Yeah.
bus passes that we've been.
What is the possible, because I know we can't do it because, it's the safety of the kids. Because me and you and everything, we be okay. The kids, the way they walk, I did it. I walk with them outside, and it's terrible. It's terrible. So I prefer, we can do something to, I don't know where we have to go to talk, because we can. The kids have the voice, the parents have the voice to change this. And we can figure out how to change it with the money. I don't want to come and say, oh, it's not issue because of the money, because they have money for something else, Mr. Testani. They have money, and it made me sad, it made me angry that we have to take care of the safety of these children, our children's, like you said, in your logo, great kids, great every day, stuff like that. So, I want to say that for the record, to be sure, we have to do something for the safety of the students. I'm worried about that.
Right.
Thank you. No more comment, Mr. Chair.
To piggyback off of what he said, we do have data about the walking most students walk, and if you want, we can put that to you. That was a study we did with Nature Conservancy and Sacred Heart University. We found that most of the walking routes that students walked most taken by students were the failing grade, I believe about between 3 and 9%. For safety rating. So that is one of the things that we looked into.
Okay. Well, everything costs money, and money that come from something else.
Right.
But the money, it's true, Mr. Chair, but the life is more priority than the life of the students. Money always stay there, but the life is not.
It's all connected. So if you want one thing, other things got to be given up.
Right.
That's difficult.
But that's not the point that we want, though. We want to have to increase the budget so that we wouldn't have to.
No, I understand. Understood. But our costs increase exponentially every year.
Yes, of course.
We never catch up.
Of course.
So it's a losing, it's a difficult climb.
Mhm.
It is.
Okay.
It was a budget cut. A few years ago, it was basically a budget cut. It was the financial thing that they went over, and it's all in the finances, basically, what he's saying. It's all in the finances. We are underfunded, like you said. This girl here, he said.
Mhm.
The city of Bridgeport is underfunded every single year for decades. So the money is sometimes not available. Yeah, they have to do some shuffling around or whatever,
Right.
but it basically does come down to finances.
Yeah.
And that was on a line in the finance committee where they had to cut because we are underfunded. There's a lot of things that happened. Parents got cut. A lot of things got cut across the board. Services for our children across the board, and that is that's why they're advocating for the city to give more funding to the school for the students.
Right.
Okay, so those things can come back, paras, busing, so on and so forth. It's budget, money. Money solves a lot of problems, and we have a lot of problems getting money for our children in the city of Bridgeport, and that's a hard thing. So in reference to that, you're definitely right.
Yeah.
Ms. Baptiste Perez, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I actually have a question regarding that. I understand that it's money. It boils down to finances. But is there no other option for competition with We Transport in the area? Could we?
We are actually.
More other options?
We are actually in the process of issuing an RFP for student transportation services. That will be on the contracts committee next week.
Okay, got it. And just for clarification, your RFP is, I'm sorry, I did that.
I'm sorry, request for proposals. It'll be, it's a public solicitation.
Oh, I know what
for-
it is. I just
Okay.
get confused with the legal request for production. So I was
Oh,
getting
no. Request for proposals.
proposals. Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. So, yeah, we'll find out some more information. And I would encourage you to try to work with GBT to educate their driver about how the passes really work. Okay.
Okay.
I guess that's all for now.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is discussion and possible report to the Board of Policy regarding public comment. Yeah. So we met on this 2 months ago, and based on the discussion, I put together a draft incorporating the things that were talked about. The new things are in red. It was sent to everybody a couple of days ago. Has everybody had a chance to read it?
Yes.
I did.
May or may not approve what we have in front of us. This may get drafted further. So I'm interested to hear, now that you see it in front of you, based on what we talked about last time, does anyone have any questions, comments?
I have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
This is the red thing you post that's almost what we have it before years back. So the only thing that just add that again, or we have it.
What you see in black was the original.
Okay.
What you see in red is what's been added.
Okay. I used to remember when I was on the board before, you guys have exactly 15 people, if you was more, you ask the board.
You here the last time? Oh, in December when we talked about this? No, I don't remember, so I'm asking. So the idea was that instead of limiting it to a hard 15, we would instead allow for unlimited public comment, but after 15, we would suspend public comment and we would continue with the rest of the meeting. And then when the meeting was finished, we'd go back to public comment before we adjourned it.
My apologies. Yes, we was here. I'm sorry.
Remember that?
I remember now. Yeah.
What?
Sorry. Yeah, you give me a refresh.
So that was the idea. That was the compromise.
Your hand up.
It's Baptiste Perez.
Yes. Sorry, it's a little bit harder on the iPad. I'm going to and from screens.
Okay.
I had a comment regarding 2A6.
What?
Prohibited from
Six.
public. Yeah.
Yes.
Are topics related to personnel matters, employment grievances, and other topics as to the day-to-day oversight of the superintendent or his or her designees. Yeah, my comment on that is part of our duties as members of the Board of Education. Yes, itemized budget and policies, but it's also oversight as to our one employee that the 9 of us are in charge of, and that's Mr. Testani. My concern with this is that there may be things happening to the day-to-day, and although it's not in our immediate peer view of what's going on, it does give us insight as to what is going on in the schools. And it may be an indicator of a larger issue that would normally not come up to the board's attention if we were to disregard that kind of speech. Also, in regards to the type of speech, I had the opportunity to speak with the head of CAPE, which is the Connecticut Association of Board of Education. And I found out that other districts do not prohibit this particular type of speech that 2A6 is attempting to restrict. I don't agree with it. at all, especially if that's not the lay of the land in Connecticut. I don't see why, especially being the largest city in Connecticut, we're going to restrict speech. That would be the largest restriction of speech in the state.
So this was based on discussion we had the last time about people coming to the podium and Mr. Testani, as he phrased it, taking pot shots at employees, at principals, at teachers, and saying that they're not doing their job. So that was where this bullet 6 came from. This was my first crack at trying to keep public comment focused on what it's supposed to be and not used as a mechanism to berate employees or other staff members. So what would be?
It kind of contradicts your other policy that you're supposed to protect the employees of the Bridgeport Public Schools as well.
So
if you allow that.
right. So, you know, what's the compromise here? What do we do? How do we express this?
Well,
Lombard?
I mean, one of the things that's stated is that you cannot do that. That's already stated.
Where?
Wasn't this? You read it every time at the meeting, so you cannot make what do you say?
Disparaging remarks.
Right. So it's stated from the get-go. Maybe something needs to be in the policy that acknowledges that the chair can curtail a comment. In other words, not say what you can't speak about, because I think Ms. Baptiste Perez brought up some really good points, that there are things that we do want to hear. So instead of naming things, just, trusting in the public. And if something goes awry, it's perfectly fine for you to bang the gavel and cut it off before 2 minutes is up. To maybe, I don't know if that needs to be put in there or not. You already have that ability, I think, just by running the meeting. But if it could be understood that if there's any, like what's already spoken, disparaging.
What about if that thing that I read, if that were just lifted verbatim and placed in here? The language about disparaging remarks.
Yeah, isn't that where you speak it, is in relation to this, to public comment?
But it's not in this document, it's on the top of the sign-in sheet.
Right, but you say that in regards to public comment.
Correct.
So exactly, I think, yes, I think that would be a possible way around it. Is to just so instead of saying what people can't talk about, just have a general code of conduct by putting that remark.
What do you think about that, Ms. Baptiste Perez?
Oh, I'm not on mute. Sorry, I was on a different screen. That's.
I mean, we don't have to decide on this finally tonight. I can come back with a second draft with that stuff put in, and you can read it yourself. But on the surface, does that sound?
It is an option. I originally had my hand raised and I thought I had muted myself, but I was agreeing with Mr. Lombard regarding the authority of you as a chair. If potentially there were times at a previous public comment, you could have, within your power as chair, cut off speech if it went beyond the 2 minutes, if it seemed like it was derogatory in any way or sense. And so for me, I think just exercising that power during speech so we can just follow through with timing and to get through public comment. I still think it kind of, for those of us who don't have children in the school system or may not have children directly in the public schools, it gives insight into additional issues. And yeah, I understand we're not supposed to micromanage Mr. Testani, especially with the day-to-days. We should be focused on big picture, but we can't ignore, I don't think it's best to ignore issues, especially if it's directly related to the schools and if it's going to impact children. It would be one thing if someone was a Bridgeport resident and just tried to do some kind of filibuster and read the newspaper or names in the yellow pages for 2 minutes. That's one thing that would be a complete waste of time. But if there's something going on in the schools that at least raises a question as to review a contract or promotes discussion that can lead to even better policies for student success, I don't want to limit that. And the only way it comes to some of our attention is when it's brought up in public comment.
Okay. The other experience we've had is where somebody's job has been eliminated as part of the budgeting process. And then the individual whose job is being eliminated gets their supporters to come to public comment and try to get the board to influence the superintendent or the CFO to reverse a budgeting decision that they've made. These are the kinds of things that we find ourselves faced with on occasion. And I don't know that it's appropriate, and I'm just trying to find the way to make things work the way they should. I don't know. Mr. Skolovic?
Yes, I'm glad to hear the concern about 6. It's way too overly broad. I mean, I agree with everything Ms. Baptiste Perez said and Mr. Lombard said as well. But like the day-to-day oversight, Testani is responsible for the people who are responsible for keeping our schools clean. So that would prohibit a parent from coming to the podium and saying, my son's school's filthy. I contacted the principal, I contacted Superintendent Testani, and nothing happened. And then we're cutting off that whole thing. So that anything could be pigeonholed into day-to-day operations. And such as personnel matters, what you just mentioned with the budget cuts. We need to hear that pressure. We need to see the consequences of our actions or inactions. And if we're firm in our decisions, I did not like letting go of all of the math specialists and reading specialists and all that stuff. Those are some of the hardest decisions we got to make, and they should be. The day we turn away from hearing the consequences of our actions is the day we become inhuman and don't think about the consequences of our actions. So we need that kind of voices in our ear. So I think 6 should be struck in its entirety. I'm not sure if it should be replaced with the public speaking thing.
Drop that other language in there about the disparaging remarks and give it another read, see if you think that that's more fitting.
I think there was some issue with saying bad things about board members and such like that. That's like kind of.
Well, I think here's the thing.
It has to be run by.
We probably have to run it by. Here's the thing: is that it's one thing to say disparaging remarks. It's a whole other thing to make slanderous allegations. I think that's really more what we're getting into. If you just don't like me, that's okay. You can say that. There's nothing slanderous about that. But if you start making accusations that I'm stealing millions of dollars, well, that kind of thing needs to be kept in check. So why don't I drop that in there? Maybe I'll tweak it a little bit, and we can do it on another review. Okay? Gotcha. So I have that marked as to be modified.
Right, just
Go ahead.
just to what Mr. Skolovic mentioned and Ms. Baptiste Perez. I mean, if someone gets up to advocate for get rid of this person position because we love that position or what have you, I think it's just best to let them voice their themselves. It's not going to change anything most likely because before it got to that point, everything was looked at and considered. But I think people want to get it off their chest and it might be best just to allow them. I think the intention, I thought, was the discussion in December was not to have them come out and speak upon things that could potentially be a grievance, that is before the board then, and then everyone has to recuse themselves. Because I remember years ago, and, you know, being a young employee in the district, I went to have a conversation, just a simple conversation, with Mr. Henry Kelly, who I respected a lot. We had a great relationship. And before I even started to speak, he said to me, just remember, if this ever turns into a grievance, I can't hear it anymore. So, and it wasn't that kind of, but that was just my first dose of reality, is that if that is part of the process, need to be cognizant not to be painted in a public comment when collective bargaining units are going to bring that forth. I thought that was why that discussion I thought we had. I don't think it was about the other stuff.
Okay.
Mr. Chair. That makes sense. I don't think that it would be an issue with putting language in the public
Related
comment.
stuff that would be covered.
Staff may not bring personal grievances or
Okay.
disciplinary actions.
Right.
To
I thought that's what we talked about in that.
That's, yeah.
Because the collective bargaining units hate that. I mean, as a former union vice president, we used to make it very clear to folks at the beginning of the year that, you know, let us handle it, because you are going to then cut off roadways to a resolution that you have rights to.
All right. All right. I've taken notes. Anything else on item 6?
Yes, me, Mr. Chair.
Perez, after, I think, has it still up.
Okay.
I'm going back what Ms. Matista said, and what Ms. Matista said, now I agree a little bit, because I always tell, like I told sometimes my parents, if you think it's an issue, something with your teacher, you let them know your principal. If you think the principal is not doing the job, that's why we had secretary director. And you don't secretary director not do the job, that's what you are, Mr. Testani. When I see sometimes people, they go straight to the board and talk, explain the situation, what they're going through with the principal, the teachers, or whoever stuff it is, it's because sometimes some parent, they really tired. They say, they're not listening to me, they don't worry, they don't care. That's what sometimes they have to come to the board of education and then stop them and now spread the stuff and talk and bring the information, and whoever support. I don't feel that, stop them is that his voice, that as a board member we hear because we elected from them. I feel like we have to listen to them, just depend on the situation, how far they go, of course, with respect and good communication, like I always tell them. But we have to feel, listen to them. And then after that, you take care the way it is. And that's a professional, like always you do.
I mean, like I said in the, I think in our, the sessions we had back in December. I mean, a lot of times when there's steps skipped in the process, there's a reason that happens. And a lot of it is because the story may not be exactly the truth. I mean, this morning, for example, there was a parent that wrote to me and made an accusation against the assistant principal at a school, said something about to the child that I know, because this person would never say anything remotely close to that. But it was because the child was about to get into trouble for something they did. And to kind of cut that off, this was going to be the story. And unfortunately, when there was a lot more digging done, the truth finally was admitted by the child that they made the story up to the parent. But those are the things that, emotions sometimes need to be taken out and cooler heads and investigations occur, But
sometimes, Mr. Destani, I understand and I agree with you, but a lot of situations happen with that. But sometimes you have to, like you said, you do a good investigation. The only thing I can tell you something, remember the best and the most beautiful angel God had, who is it right now? The devil. So you have to, like when I tell you this, I cannot believe it all the time that sometimes your stuff is telling the truth, or the parent, the student is not lying. Remember that in handbook conduct, I told you, you have to listen both sides and give the chance to the student and the parent listen the side. Not all the time, like you as superintendent, of course, you're going to be in your side defending your staff, but we had to listen.
Not necessarily.
I know, but sometimes you have to listen both sides and go more deep. I mean, Batista have the hand.
Baptiste Perez, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I understand I don't want to use the word restraint, but the concerns with grievances. However, when it comes to potentially, and this, I will say I need more information and knowledge on, but for non-union staff that do not have the traditional labor union or does not have the backing of that, who may just have a small role within the schools, or depending on someone's perception, a small role within the school, the avenue for them becomes much slimmer, I suppose, as opposed to union staff, teachers, principals, those traditional type of roles, having alternative channels to actually go through before anything needs to go to the board before skipping a step. However, there are other people that work in our schools that are having meaningful impact on the community. And sorry, I thought I heard someone else speaking.
It's the loudspeaker.
The point is, it's going to take sensitivity to that. I think the moment something comes up that is not appropriate in public comment, the speaker should be immediately cut off to prevent the board from being able to adjudicate any potential future issues. However, for people affiliated with the school, staff who don't have those traditional channels with unions, as an attorney, I can only see that going two particular ways. And maybe if they at least had the avenue to express that during public comment, that would be potentially better.
So all employees have mechanisms if they have an issue that needs to be dealt with. If you're not in a union, there are procedures in place for you to go through the HR department if you've got an issue, things like that. So I think maybe we can craft some catch-all language that talks about specifically employees engaging the board in their individual personnel matters that are outside of the designated process that's available to them. So I can craft something like that and drop that in here and see what you think about it and see if you think it needs to be modified any further. But I understand what you're saying about item 6, and we'll take care of that. Are there any other aspects of this draft that anyone has a question or a comment on?
Just a comment, question for you, Mr. Chair. So if over 15 people, and let's say like the last time, people 16, 17, 18, so we have to make a motion to,
That was the agreement, we would have the sign-up sheet.
yeah, of course.
And then after line 15, there would be a statement saying, if you have signed up below this line, your testimony is going to be deferred to the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. All right, so this has some work to be done to it. Next on the agenda is discussion and possible referral to the full board of revised policy regarding high school magnet entrance and performance expectations. So this is, I think you brought this to us, Mr. Testani.
Yeah, so,
And before we go any further, there's some items that are highlighted in yellow. Is this new stuff?
yes, so this is relating only to Central Magnet because it is the only intra-district magnet, and it's not governed by any of the federal magnet policies. So there are some outdated things that hadn't been looked at in years. So the staff here at Central Magnet, teachers, counselor, and director, they had a committee they reviewed. And the highlights, one of the things that was changed, and it's not reflective, we no longer give the CMTs. That was the state test that was being looked at for entrance in the old policy. We now give SBAC. So the highlights are what has changed. We added, or they added, just reporting out, the principal recommendation at the sending school, the elementary school would be part of it. So if possibly there was a child who may have had some struggles, but now has turned it around, having the principal recommendation would carry weight, never the case prior. We took off, effort grade has changed. We're just saying that the attendance and the student conduct is appropriate, rather than look at a grade of 1.7 or less that they would. And then they looked at students that were at the top 10 percentile and thought that that would give them automatic acceptance, similar to a student that was in the feeder pattern. So there may be a student who was an exceptional student that just wasn't able to get into Park City Magnet, High Horizons, or multicultural. May have moved into the district later on, so there was no seats at those schools for that child to even get off the waiting list. So because they have excelled to that level, they thought that would be a child that was deserving. So those kids would normally have been left out if their number wasn't called in the lottery. This way they have a clear pathway, just like every other child that achieves at a high level. So I think that the policy they created is really good. And the reason why the continuing enrollment in Central Magnet was changed, we changed a couple of years ago the high school schedule. So before you had to take 5 courses. Well, it's a 4 period. It's a blocked schedule now. So there's not even 5 to take. It's mathematically impossible. So that's why that was tweaked. And they put in students that fail 2 academic courses by the end of the school year will be deselected. So to maintain, again, a level of rigor for student expectations. In the past, if a child failed 1 academic course, they were required to go to summer school to make that up, to continue in Central Magnet. That is no longer here as a requirement, because there are more opportunities for children to take credits for graduation because of the new block schedule. We also took out, as you couldn't see, but any student that had a type 3 violation of then the code of conduct, which now is the student handbook, would automatically be deselected. That was taken out, so that a child who makes one mistake in judgment is not automatically removed from their high school. So I think they did a really good job. They obviously added a pathway for students that historically are high achievers but didn't have a pathway to Central Magnet and were shut out. They increased from C to C+ or better in their 7th and 8th grade report cards. They coincide now with the state assessment, SBAC, and added the principal recommendation, which in the past was not allowed. But principals do give some good insight in helping kids that historically have not been given the opportunity to access the program. And then again, just to be reflective of our new block schedule, the enroll in 4 courses, 2 academic. And then again, eliminating the 1 mistake that a child may make in a type 3 disciplinary offense that is not to the level of expulsion. A type 4 would be that, but maybe a little bit more serious. Those children now will not be deselected from the program. So I think overall they did a really good job.
Sullivan,
Yes, yeah, I see, under please note and,
where?
hold on, page
No.
2,
All eighth grade students?
entrance requirements.
Yes,
All grade 8 students in TAG and BPS magnet elementary schools may automatically enter central.
that has to be corrected, correct. You're right, because that doesn't include Discovery.
Not Discovery, right, it doesn't include Discovery, and, we gotta make sure Clader is included as well, Clader magnet, because it's a split school. So they only got certain magnet schools and,
Well, they have the kids in the TAG program.
I'm sorry,
They have the TAG kids.
they had, I'm sorry.
There are tags.
They're a TAG school, so those kids do get from Clader, get automatic entrance.
Because when we changed Clader to, follow the regular magnet policy, so they automatically will come in now.
All eighth graders at Clader?
All Clader magnet students. The separate magnet program at Clader.
Okay, all right, so
Because when we revised the elementary magnet policy, that
okay,
they have to fulfill the same requirements as Park City, the other, and High Horizons classical studies. So they should have the same rights and privileges once they achieve those goals and they meet those benchmarks. It does say all,
it does.
but traditionally Clader hasn't been fast tracked to Central.
Well, the students who then score the top 10 percentile in TAG automatically get in, but you're saying the ones that
Is it?
in there because of the lottery.
Yes, the lottery students, which is, because there's no testing to get into any of the magnet schools. It's all lottery. So some lottery kids have the opportunity to go straight and some others would not in that case.
Gotcha. There's not really a rush to do this right now. I'll have that altered. We can bring that back for one more view next month.
And I got a question. Might I ask, what's the difference between, let's say two hypothetical students who go through Central High School, one magnet, one traditional. What differentiates two B average students in getting their diploma? One says magnet and one says just Central.
They all say central.
Yeah, I know, but there's the separate magnet program. They don't get a
Separate magnet diploma. Yes,
When did that happen?
a while ago.
Mine does not say that.
Well, you're old.
Yeah, I know. That's my point.
There is a Central Magnet High School. It's a separate.
Really?
Right.
Yes.
And from what I heard from prior board members, when kids went to that school,
What?
kids could transfer in and out. Once you get into the lottery, they could take what amounts to general education courses instead of higher impact courses and maintain those, because in some classes, it's easier to get an A than in other classes.
Gotcha. So that's why they're saying here, the must enroll in 4 courses, which include, but those are magnet courses. Now, there are opportunities and there is instances where a child is here in 9th grade and from teacher recommendations, get an opportunity to enter magnet later on. But I hear what you're saying. I think the continued enrollment in Central Magnet addresses a lot of that.
And the one course,
Must complete one AP course or a ECE course. Those are important. Students must, the passing of classes. But I think what you're saying is you're making sure that those classes that they're passing are not out of the magnet program just to maintain a certain level of academic success to stay in the.
right, and if you want it to be distinctive, it's gotta have distinctive components, like if it's gonna be like an extra recognized, you have extra.
Let me speak to Dr. Graff and Ms. Smith to see if any specific language should be added because of that, or if that's just not something that could occur now.
The magnet kit, the magnet is a separate wing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's upstairs on the second floor. Second.
They all go from class to class together for the most part, right?
Yeah, I mean, they do intermix with, the neighborhood central kids, lunchtime.
Yeah. I'm not trying to,
No, I know.
I'm not trying to segregate. I'm just
Gonna have a distinctive,
differentiate.
there should be, so maybe we need to look at, that all core academic graduation requirements need to be taken in the magnet program if you're going to get a distinctive diploma.
Right.
Okay, let me take a look at that, because bring up a good point.
That's all I got for now.
I mean, I know there's sticklers about this in the program, but I mean, the teachers, the counselors and everything, but I think it may need to be spelled out just in case a parent challenges it or a student.
Is that it for now?
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Mr. Lombard?
No, I just, are the credits weighted any differently towards GPA?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one thing with their courses. So if they take a course that's not magnet, it won't have the same impact on GPA.
Correct. And the majority of the kids in magnet are very cognizant. I know here, just in some of the student roundtables, of making sure that, and Dr. Graff is very aware of spreading out the AP courses across each period to make sure that kids can take as many AP courses as they wish. Also to make sure that the kids that go to aquaculture can come back and have access to those courses as well.
So can a non-magnet student take a magnet course?
It's allowed, especially in instances where kids are trying to prove themselves as being accepted to magnet. There's been teachers that recommend, so they may start off with a class or two, and if they're able to do well, that will give them then enter the magnet programs.
Okay, thank you.
Bert, anything?
No, nothing to say. Thank you.
Chris, any thought? She who is silent is known to consent. Okay. All right, so I guess you got a little bit of homework to do. We'll come back to next time. Sure. We'll go from there. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Benahan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lombard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Time is noted as being 7:45 PM. Next meeting will be on Monday, March 7th. Thank you.
Thank you.